What if I tell you that there was a gang who had stolen the entire train in England? Would you believe it? Watch the complete video to know about the Great Train Robbery. During the early 1960s, a significant portion of London's population experienced impoverished and dull living conditions. The aftermath of post-war rationing, which had ended just 6 years earlier, still lingered in people's minds. Ronald Christopher Buster Edwards, who had developed a liking for making quick cash by selling black market meat obtained from his job in a sausage factory, was now transitioning to theft along with his accomplice Gordon Goody. While facing legal troubles, they met Brian Field, a clerk who worked for a lawyer. Field went beyond just preparing their legal defenses and offered to provide them with information about his firm's clients who could be targeted for robbery, in exchange for a share of the loot. At the beginning of 1963, Brian Field introduced Ronald Christopher Buster Edwards and Gordon Goody to a man nicknamed the Ulsterman, whose real identity was suspected to be Patrick McKenna, a corrupt postal worker from Manchester who was originally from Belfast. The Ulsterman disclosed some intriguing news to the duo. The overnight mail trains from Glasgow to London were transporting large sums of cash, which could be an attractive target for theft. However, the task was beyond the capabilities of Goody and Edwards. Consequently, they approached Bruce Richard Reynolds, an experienced criminal from South London, with this information. Reynolds then started to assemble a makeshift gang over the following months. Best laid plans. The plan devised by the gang was remarkably straightforward. They intended to halt the train in a remote Buckinghamshire countryside location near Sears Crossing, which was in close proximity to Ledburn Village and where they could tamper with the signal. Although it was a suitable spot to halt the train, the high embankments rendered it unsuitable for unloading the stolen items. Therefore, the train would be transported to the nearby Bridego Bridge, where the gang could unload the high-value packages. The mail train was typically long and staffed by around 80 postal workers who sorted through the letters and parcels during the journey. The gang discovered that the HVPs were stored in the second car from the front, which meant they could uncouple only the first 2 cars. Once they reached the Bridego Bridge, they planned to transfer the registered mail sacks via a human chain from the elevated embankment to a waiting dropside truck on the road below. Bruce Richard Reynolds was not willing to take any risks, and he made sure that the gang had contingency plans in place. In case the hijacked driver refused to follow their instructions, one of the gang members spent several months studying locomotive manuals to ensure they could operate the train if necessary. This individual posed as a schoolteacher and managed to persuade a suburban line driver to allow him to ride along, carefully observing and picking up important details. Reynolds also enlisted the services of an experienced driver to provide additional expertise. Meanwhile, Brian Field worked on acquiring the abandoned Leatherslade farm, situated about 30 miles from Sears Crossing, which was to be their hideout after the robbery. Signal victory. On the evening of Wednesday, August 7th, a few minutes before 7 p.m., the train departed from Glasgow under the command of the experienced driver Jack Mills, with his co-driver David Whitby by his side. The high-value packages coach, which the gang was targeting, contained over £2.6 million in cash, significantly more than the £300,000 they had anticipated due to the UK bank holiday on the previous Monday when banks shut down. When the train arrived at Sears Crossing, the gang had already interfered with the signal lights. They covered the green light with a glove to obscure it and connected the red stop sign to a separate battery. The driver, Jack Mills, was taken aback when he saw the signals and brought the train to a stop. His co-driver, David Whitby, went to inspect the situation. However, when Whitby attempted to use the trackside telephone to report the incident, he discovered that the wires had been severed. While Whitby was returning to the train, unidentified individuals wearing ski masks and motorcycle helmets threw him down the steep embankment. Simultaneously, members of the gang, who were also wearing gloves and masks, entered Mills' cabin and struck him with an iron bar, rendering him unconscious. Other gang members disconnected the cars from the rear of the HVP coach, overpowered the postal workers, and handcuffed them. It was evident that the substitute driver, who the gang knew as Stan Agate, was not capable of operating the advanced Class 40 diesel-electric locomotive. Therefore, the robbers were forced to revive Mills after knocking him out, so he could drive them to Bridego Bridge. They transferred the mailbags down the embankment using a human chain and rapidly loaded them onto a truck. Before leaving, they warned the handcuffed postal workers and the HVP coach not to contact the authorities for 30 minutes. The gang then returned to their hideout at Leatherslade Farm, victorious, an inevitable slip-up. The Great Train Robbery was truly remarkable, and while it may seem like something out of a film, such intricately planned heists have been more common in movies than in actual criminal activity in recent times. Not only are such crimes risky, but they also require a lot of effort. The robbery seemed to have involved as many as 17 men, although a few individuals still remain unknown to this day. The gang divided the spoils equally among themselves to prevent any internal disputes that could have posed a potential threat. Nonetheless, the large number of people involved in the heist posed a significant risk, including the possibility of a gang member being careless with their share of the loot or discussing the crime with others. Eventually, an acquaintance of the ringleaders, who was also in prison and hoping to strike a deal, overheard some gossip and passed it on to the authority, providing a crucial lead for the investigators to follow. The plan unravels. At the farmhouse where the robbers had been hiding, confidence quickly turned into tension as they realized that the police were closing in, sweeping the surrounding area. The plan had been to remain hidden for a week, but the police had discovered a vital clue. The warning given to the HVP staff suggested a hideout within a 30-minute drive. Acting on a neighbor's tip-off about unusual activity at Leatherslade Farm, the police searched the premises, finding fingerprints on a Monopoly game and a ketchup bottle, both of which had been used by the robbers. The collapse of the conspiracy was sudden and chaotic, in stark contrast to the patient planning that had gone into it. 11 of the robbers were quickly captured together in South London. Most of the 11 robbers received a 30-year prison sentence, which was considered harsh for a crime that did not involve any fatalities. Nonetheless, this sentence helped create empathy for the robbers. 2 of them managed to escape from prison. In August 1964, Charlie Wilson's associates broke into Winson Green Prison in Birmingham and freed him. The following year, in July, Ronnie Biggs climbed over the wall at Wandsworth Prison in London. Mythical status. Although the audacity of the robbery was undeniable, the long-term effects on the train crew were often overlooked. Mills suffered from post-traumatic headaches for the remainder of his life and never fully recovered from his injuries. Whitby passed away a few years later at the age of 34 due to a heart attack. Nonetheless, these tragedies were overshadowed by a growing romanticization of the crime, amplified by the fact that only a small portion of the £2.6 million haul was recovered. The robbery occurred at a time when irreverence toward traditional authority was fashionable, and when Andy Warhol asserted that everyone would be famous for 15 minutes. Biggs collaborated with the Sex Pistols on music, and Edwards was the subject of the movie Buster, with rock star Phil Collins portraying his character. 3 years after the heist, The Great Trinian's train robbery was released, suggesting that serious crimes could be comedic entertainment. Thank you very much everyone for watching this video. Let me know in the comments section if you liked today's video and topic. Subscribe to my channel, Magnate Mindsets.